Welcome, everyone. This is episode 4 of Filmmakers After Dark. I have with me a special guest all the way from the US. This man is a indie film and documentary maker. I can't remember how long you've been doing it for. Mr. Aaron Camp. I'm pretty sure you know him. He mentioned that you've done a lot of stuff and you make a living from filmmaking, yeah?
Yeah. I've been, let's see, I made my first movie in 2003, I guess. It came out in 2005. So yeah, almost 20 years.
Okay, nice. And so how did you? So I saw an earlier video you did with Alex Ferrari, and
Yeah.
You mentioned that you didn't really have much of a job before filmmaking. Is that right?
You mean like a job within filmmaking or just working?
No, just in general.
Oh, no. I had several jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to college when I was kind of late. I think I started when I was 24. Prior to that, I did fast food restaurants, worked at Starbucks for a long time. I used to work offshore. I was a deckhand and a relief engineer, did a lot of writing out there. Then I went to college. Then after college and making movies, I had like a period where I wasn't getting film work, like between my first movie and my second, and I worked at Starbucks again for a while.
Yeah, right. And so, did you use a lot of the money from that sort of Starbucks and that to help fund your film?
Yes, yeah, my initial stuff. But now the first film, that's pretty much what we did. It was me and two other partners. And so, Starbucks money, credit cards, I think we spent like around $4,000 or $5,000 on that first movie. Now, the second movie, I found an investor for, but I was still supplementing, my lifestyle with, part-time work.
And so when you obviously you write these films as well. So if you're making something on 4,000 or 5,000, is it just you and say a DP and a soundy? Do you have like a first AD or anything like that as well?
Yeah, on the first movie, now this isn't typical how I work now, but on that first movie, we were just coming out of college, so we had a lot, and it was a film school, so we had a lot of filmmaker friends. So that first movie, honestly, it's probably one of the larger crews I ever had because, it was film students and friends, and everybody was like, working together to make this thing, and we had no illusion of, selling it or making a bunch of money off of it. Now we did end up selling it, just blind luck, but as far as crew goes, it was a pretty robust crew. Yeah. Now, since then, when you're doing low budget movies, those crews get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Like on a documentary film, for example, I might work for, it could literally, a few of them have been just me. Like I'll set up the camera, I'll mic the people, and I'll light it, and then I'll do the interviews.
So with the documentaries, do you just interview the people, or do you go and do, say, the one that you had on Bigfoot, which I haven't seen yet, but do you go and do as much research as you can on Bigfoot, or do you just interview them?
Well, like on the Bigfoot one, I did do a bunch of research on it. I watched other documentaries on it. I looked up information on it. I followed a bunch of Facebook groups that were into Bigfoot to see what we're talking about and that. So yeah, there was a lot of, on almost every subject, I tend to do quite a bit of research. Although part of the fun in documentaries is the discovery. It's like starting to learn about this subject that you might not know much about. And sometimes, for example, I did one on a dog rescue, and I did almost no research on it. I just went and started talking to the people. And, so like I'm basically learning about it in real time as they're talking. And that can be really exciting too.
And you did one on marijuana as well, eh?
Yeah, I've done a few on cannabis. I think 3 now. Got a 4th one coming out, a big one, and then I'm doing a psychedelic mushroom one. And again, I'm not a, I've been a recreational user for many years, but I never really knew much about the movement. I didn't have a lot of interest in it, and I had a producing partner that's really into that world. Like he even ran something called the Secret Cup many years ago, which was like a really big marijuana festival or THC festival, whatever they call them. But he's super into it. So he was my lead into that world, and we've made all of those together.
Okay. And so your preference, is it documentary? Because I remember you saying that you didn't really want anything to do with documentaries. I'm trying not to ask the same sort of questions he did.
Right.
But,
It's fine.
Do you prefer documentaries or do you prefer film?
It's a complicated question, and there are different things that I get from each. Now, like when I first got into filmmaking, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, all I wanted to do was make narrative features. I wanted to be Quentin Tarantino, or I wanted to be Kevin Smith or whoever.
Yeah.
But and no, as opposed to, I liked watching them, but I had no interest in documentaries. But when I started actually making the documentaries, I found it's a different kind of fulfillment. As an artist, I tend to prefer narratives. I'm making my art, I'm making my movie, I'm expressing myself, and that's cool. But when you're doing a documentary and you put it out into the world, it's like I feel more of a larger sense of fulfillment. Like I'm providing, information that people want or people need, for example, doing the dog rescue thing. I mean, that dog rescue got all kinds of donations, from this documentary. Like, it helped them stay alive, and that feels awesome.
Yeah.
Or the cannabis ones, 2 of them were focused on people using cannabis to help fight cancer. So like, how can you not feel good about doing something about fighting cancer? And the people on most of the subjects I do, the subjects, they're very, very passionate about what they're doing. And it's almost impossible to document that and not get caught up in the, in that feeling. So like on that level, documentaries give me something that I don't get from narrative filmmaking. So I like to do both. And then as far as making low budget stuff, documentaries are just easier. I mean, at least for me, there's less crew. I'm not dealing with, cast interviewees sometimes. There's just none of the extra logistics that come with narrative filmmaking. It's for me, it's much easier. And as an editor, I've been editing for many years, and I dabbled in documentary prior to doing them myself, but not much. But once I actually started cutting them, I realized, I had like a natural knack for doing it and editing them quickly. So that's pretty much why.
And so money wise, like return wise, do you find you get more from narrative films than you do from docos?
So again, it's it's not quite that black and white. So in general, like on an individual project in general, a narrative film is going to have more potential.
Okay.
So like when I was making predominantly narrative films between 2008 and 2015, individually, a lot of these projects are making more money than probably any documentary I'll ever do. Like they're doing very well. But as time has went on, that hit to miss ratio has increased. Like it's much harder now to make that kind of money on a narrative film. You still can, it's harder and it happens less often. With the documentaries, I can make more of them. I can make them faster. I can make them cheaper. So, where, like one of my hit documentaries last year, probably it was a total of around 25,000 for the year, which is pretty low, relatively for movies where I've had narratives that have made 100,000 in a year, but I can do more of them, so your risk is smaller, your exposure is smaller, and, the potential's a little smaller.
And so obviously you got a lot of your, I'm guessing here, a lot of your monetization start on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, in my initial career, most of my narratives were released traditionally, through distributors. So, DVD, limited theatricals, streaming as it was beginning. When I started the documentaries, I had discovered, Amazon, the Prime Video Direct. It's kind of a fluke, actually, because back in like 2010, 10 or 11, they had something called Create Space, and you could upload movies through there, and then they would get it on Amazon. This was before Amazon Prime, but you could get movies up streaming, but not too many people knew about it. So I put up a couple of my older movies that had just, the license had expired with the distributor, left them up, and those movies, like, out of nowhere. Well, it took a little while. Like, at first they were making a few bucks a month, and then like 6 months later, one of them popped up and it was making like $1,200 a month, something like that. Wow. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is a thing. Like, if you can make a movie at a relatively low budget, you can put it up on Amazon and make some money. And this was back when they were still, like, I was paying a pretty decent rate. I think it was like 15 cents an hour per hour streamed, which might sound low, but it's not. Like, exactly. you could make a lot of money like that. In relative terms, I've had a couple of movies this last year that were streaming like, 2-3 million minutes a week, and, now today those movies make, at that rate, they make about, $1,000, $2,000 a month. Now, had this been, 2014, 15, that would have been about 20,000 a month.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So do you still, because Aaron has put a couple of films up on Amazon Prime, and they've all been purged basically. He had one that was doing, I don't know, I think he said about 100 to 150 views a week, which isn't a lot, but for a local one of our local films it is. Yeah. And they took it off. Have you still got your titles on there, or have they purged them as well?
I've lost quite a few. So I have, my library is close to 40 films deep right now. And out of that, I probably lost maybe 6 on Amazon. And then the other thing that they're doing is they don't necessarily purge everything. There are some movies that they just remove from Prime, but it's still available for rental and purchase. But where that line is when they decide to do that, I couldn't tell you, but it does happen. So predominantly everything's on Amazon. My biggest gripe with my stuff on Amazon right now is just that, the pay rates have gotten so low that, it's went from being like the #1 spot for indie filmmakers to like, close to last.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're obviously, with not having as many films on there, is it through other platforms that you're making your living from it, or is it just
Yes. I still do overall. Like, I mean, I haven't done the math since they started doing they don't take documentaries anymore, by the way, like with Amazon, since February they stopped. So I haven't done my overall numbers, but off the top of my head, I would guess that even today, Amazon's still amounting to about maybe 25% of my exhibition income. So it's still a thing, but platforms like I would, Tubi TV is probably my #1 right now. That's probably closer to 60%. And then all the other, smaller platforms or platforms you haven't really heard of, that makes up another, 15.
Okay. Because Tubi TV, I heard, it's got a lot of, I wouldn't call them gatekeepers, but moderators, so it's quite hard to get stuff on there.
Yeah. Tubi is way more curated than Amazon, and the problem with Tubi TV is you can't upload there directly. Like my relationship is not direct with Tubi. I get to Tubi through places like Film Hub or distributors like Indie Rights. Now, I mean, I have a pretty good, hit to miss ratio with it. Like 95% of my films do get to Tubi, but that's me. There's other people that don't. So it's not a guarantee. I mean, the sad thing about all the Amazon stuff is, like Amazon years ago, creating Prime Video Direct, they opened up this avenue for independent filmmakers with like almost no gatekeeping to put your movie up and be on a major platform, right next on the new release wall to Fast and Furious, and we're paying a decent rate. And it just changed the independent film landscape. It made it possible for, poor filmmakers in places, country places in mid-America or wherever, to make their movies and upload them. And you could actually earn a living on it, but like I said, they've changed that. They're purging movies. You can't put up documentaries. They've lowered the pay rate now to where 60% of movies that are uploaded are making 1 penny per hour streamed, and it's almost impossible to make any kind of substantial money at a penny per hour streamed.
Yeah. What about Vimeo? Do you use Vimeo much?
I do a little bit. Excuse me one sec.
You're right.
My issue with Vimeo is it's really good for a certain type of filmmaker. If you have pre-built an audience for your movie, if you have an audience at the ready that you can push to some place like Vimeo, you can do really well. Like I think the split on Vimeo is like 90-10. Like you get 90% of it. I don't know anybody paying that rate. Yeah. But the problem with Vimeo is it's not a discovery platform. Like if you put a movie on Vimeo, the 99.9% of the views that you get are going to be views that you earn, views that you bring people to with some form of advertising. By contrast, if you're talking about Tubi or Amazon, almost at a certain point, like 70% or 80% or more of your views are going to come from discoverability. Those initial views are going to be you pushing people there, but eventually that algorithm will take over and it'll do a lot of that work for you. So especially for small films with limited marketing budgets, and the discoverability of a platform like Tubi or Amazon or whatever will do a lot of your work.
Yeah, because I heard it's also not that user friendly as far as because I know when I use it, a lot of the films I've purchased, I have to go into watch later or something like that because they're not actually under the purchase one. I find it can get hard to navigate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is something the customer experience is not great. A friend of mine, somebody I used to work for, they have a streaming network and they use Vimeo to host it. So, but when you watch it, it's incredibly hard to watch. Navigating from full screen to regular through a site, it's just anyway. But I think that Vimeo is trying to change that. I think they want to become a more customer based platform. Yep. So Vimeo is something to keep an eye on because it's something I always put stuff up there. I just don't waste a lot of my time trying to drive the traffic to it because it's just more bandwidth than I have. But I keep an eye on it because in the future, I think it could end up being a more, user-based platform.
And do you think out of all these platforms you're on, even the smaller ones, you said like Plex and things like that?
Yeah.
Do you think any of them will eventually take over or make the returns that you can get on Amazon, like when you were getting the 6 or 12 cents or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think so. Tubi, for example, I think they've been around for like 11 years now. But I never even heard of Tubi before, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I would assume, and I'm assuming because I wasn't keeping track of it at that time, but I would assume those first 6 years, it was nothing like it is now. As far as being able to make returns. So it just stands to reason that, one or more of these platforms will eventually, like something will happen with them, which is another reason I really like places like Film Hub, because, you upload your movie there and they're just consistently adding new platforms and submitting the movie to new platforms. They take 20% of the back end, no upfront pay, and, in perpetuity, films are being submitted to new platforms and you never know which one of those is going to be the next Tubi. And you don't have to really keep track of it,
Well, Aaron uploaded Black Ghost, a film I did in 2017 we gave the rights to Bounty Entertainment. So non-exclusive rights, obviously.
Right.
And they've got it on platforms on somewhere that we haven't. And so far in the last 8 months, it's been up. It's had 101,000 views on YouTube. And so,
nice.
They've got a little pool of money there for us, but they were platforms we could never get onto without having them on board. And I think, like you said, if people start uploading more to film, is there anywhere specific in Film Hub you have to type in to get on those platforms?
No, it's all, and none of it's guaranteed. Like they are just a marketplace. It is up to that platform whether or not they want to take you.
Yeah, right.
So you upload a movie to Film Hub, and they have an algorithm that ranks popularity of your titles and your titles compared to other people's titles, your titles within a genre compared to other titles,
okay.
all that. And then so the platforms look at those different lists, and they pick what they want. So that's pretty much how that works. And there's no like set time frame.
Okay.
Like a few months ago, I would put a movie up, and within like 3 weeks, like I would have that title on Tubi through them. But like the last couple months, it's been more like 8 weeks, so it just, and that could go down or up. It just depends.
And so when you make your film, obviously you write it as well. What is do you have the budget in mind before you write it, or do you write it and say, okay, well, this is the budget that I need?
Yeah. So that's changed a lot for me over the years. When I started out, I was just writing what I wanted. And, I wrote, I probably have 15, 16 scripts, like, finished that I've never shot, right. Cause a lot of them are just like, they're not realistic, but budget wise, and not just that I couldn't raise that budget, but like maybe that particular movie in that particular genre at that budget is just not a responsible move, regardless of whether you have the money or not. So anyway, as I started making movies, I started becoming a lot more aware of the business side, of the fact that if you make a $20 million, or $100 million slasher movie, like that's an irresponsible budget, so, but anyway, so now, yes, I absolutely write for budget. I write around budget. I write around what I have access to, all of that, like I moved into a house in Georgia. So, I'm thinking about, like how can I use the house, stuff like that. Yeah.
Cause I watched the 3 films that you've put up. Trap's not due out till a little bit later.
It's like next week or week after. I can't remember.
But no, the ones that I watched, I noticed even with them that you sort of kept it to 1 or 2 locations and minimal actors as well, which is what I've been trying to do with a version, the proof of concept that we did. We filmed it in 1 location. There was only 7 actors, and then that was it. So we filmed it Friday, Saturday, and then come home on the Sunday. And although there was essentially no budget, we just paid for catering. It was a lot easier to do. So we're designing the feature like that at the moment, but depending on the budget, there's what we may have an investor who will put in. If not, then we can just rejig it around to use some other locations. But like you were saying about genre, it's the horror genre. I think is restricted to like certain markets or certain audiences because of the R18, whatever it is. But you can probably make it for less, like 50 or 100 grand. Whereas something like a thriller, you'll get out to M or MA plus, but you need a bit bigger budget. Do you feel that's pretty right?
Yeah, I think it's fair. And again, there's a micro budget version of almost any genre. Like I've seen people do sci-fi stuff, for $10,000, but just be clever about it, and it's cool. But yeah, in general, I think horror is a good low budget market. Although, thrillers these days are becoming more prevalent in the low budget space. One of the distributors I work with, I look at a lot of their returns, and I see, I guess they're technically selling them as horror movies, but they're a little more thrillers, people in a house, somebody stalking them kind of thing, or a ghost thing, but it really plays more like a slow burn thriller. And some of those are doing really, really well. And, I would say those budgets are probably, 20 grand and under.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the biggest budget you've ever made a film for?
250,000 is the most I've ever directed a film for. It was a work for hire. It's a movie called, they changed the title. What is it now? The Sen Choice. It was a courtroom. It was a religious movie about a lawyer who, kind of a bad guy who is he has a heart attack. It's like a heaven can wait thing. He's in heaven and on trial for his soul. But we had a lot of name talent in it. Leon was the main actor. We had Robin Givens, Richard Roundtree. I can't remember who else, but there was a lot. It was big. And it was made by this producer, Jacarius Johnson, who is basically trying to create his own Netflix. So like
Yeah,
he's making all of his movies at a loss to own all the content for this streaming site. And as far as I know, the streaming site just launched like maybe last year. And we shot this movie back in 2013, 2014.
Okay.
So yeah. But yeah, that was the biggest. And then I've done a few around the 100,000, and then pretty much like most of the narratives were hovering around 50, 60,000. And then, some of these documentaries I do almost for literally nothing, in my time.
Yeah, because I was speaking to a couple of people that I know that have made films around 200,000, and then obviously made them for 5 or 10,000. And they said, in a way, they sometimes prefer to make, excuse me, the smaller, I don't know, 5 to 20,000 films, because when you have that smaller budget, things like props and stuff like that, if they break, you have to work within the budget. Whereas if you have the bigger ones, a lot of money's wasted just on either getting new ones or just on different stuff. Is that what you found?
Yeah, totally. And honestly, it's just with less money at stake, there's less pressure.
Yeah.
When you make a movie for $100,000 or $200,000, typically, and this is just typically, there are different ways to raise money, but usually it's coming from private equity. Usually it's like wealthy people, but not incredibly rich people, because like incredibly rich people, they're not going to waste $100,000 on a movie. It's like one of the worst investments you can make. It's usually people, it's like doctors and lawyers, people that are, they're doing fine, but $100,000 loss will hurt, but they're still willing to take that risk. So anyway, there's no pressure. Like nobody's going to lose their house, at $20,000, nobody's going to be, they might be mad, but they're not going to be, it's not going to get litigious if it fails, whereas, you make a movie for $100,000 and say you have $100,000 and you had 3 investors, and, they came in at like 33,000, something like that. And one of those investors was, a producer who's, say his mother had died or something, and he had a little bit of money from that, and he liked this movie and put the money in. The movie fails, and he never makes anything back. That's for me, one of the worst things in the world is not being able to return money to somebody that actually needs it for a movie. And on the other hand, today, I would never take money from someone like that either.
Yeah, okay. And so do you think starting with a smaller budget, say 5,000-10,000, making a movie like that first, and then making a bigger budget of 120 or 100 or 250, do you think starting with the lower one is more beneficial, like you said, because you learn how to use use budgets properly?
Yeah. You like, it's almost, you learn how to do everything with much less risk, much less financial risk, much less risk. Like if this fails, not too many people are going to see it, or nobody's going to see it, or nobody's going to know, like you can, you make a movie for $5,000, you can take risks, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff and see what works, what doesn't. So it's definitely, it's all the way around a good place to start. And then plus, like, I refer to like really, really low budget filmmaking as kind of like shot clock pool. Like, you don't have time to really line up, and you just have to take your shot. Yeah. And there's something that's like exciting about that. I've done a couple of features for a company where we were literally, we would shoot these in one day. An entire movie in one day. And they're definitely not my best work. I'm not like super proud of them creatively, but it's a different kind of excitement. Like it's exciting to work in that and see how much you can do with very, very, very little money and time.
When I did Slice, it was a short film. I bought the script off a guy I know here, and I just wanted to try directing, and I didn't know enough about directing, like camera angle. So basically, we gave the cast when they went away, learnt their stuff, and then it was literally, we filmed it in one day. So the morning we did the house scene, and then that night they went away, had a 3 or 4 hour break. That night came back and we did the night scene, and I'm there with the camera guy, and I said, he goes, "What shots do you reckon we should get?" So I said, "I have no idea." So we just sort of winged it and did these shots and put it together. And it's okay for a short film, but I sort of feel like maybe I should stick to the the producing side of things, but I just wanted to give directing a go, And I think
Yeah.
guerrilla filmmaking, maybe, I think that might have been what you're talking about. Sometimes can be a lot better because you have to make sure that you're getting things right to a degree. Whereas if you've got time, it's like, we'll just do it, just keep going and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And for me, I really love the process of filmmaking. I mean, don't get me wrong. The final result is important to me, and I love it, and I like seeing people react to it and this and that. But overall, the thing that I get the most fulfillment out of is the doing. Is the making of it. So for me, that the low budget, high budget, it's the making of it that's exciting.
And so say you had 10,000 to make a film, and you had a few actors. How much of that would you put aside for marketing and because I've heard that's really important as well. How much would you put aside for that out of that 10,000?
So at $10,000, and this is going to be contrary to a lot of stuff that I preach on my channel, but at $10,000, I wouldn't put any of it aside. Like it's just $10,000 is so low a budget. Like you need it to make the movie. If you can, I might put. Like you could hire a PR firm like October Coast Films for around $650 or $850 to run a 3 or 4 week campaign on your movie. Yeah. I might put some of that aside, or at least I would plan to, but I've brought almost every movie on budget, but I've used the budget on every movie, so like, I don't know. Chances are at 10, I wouldn't put it in. Now, if you're talking 100, 20% probably.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, but people say like on bigger movies, they spend about, I think it's like 50% or 60 or it's something crazy. And I think that amount is relative to your budget. So, if you're making it for 10,000, I wouldn't spend any. You're spending it 100,000, I do 20%. If I was doing 500,000, I might do 30 or 40%, so on and so forth, something like that.
And what's your take on film festivals? Do you put any of your stuff in film festivals?
So I am not a film festival guy. I never really attended many, and I've never, I've submitted to some. I've been in a few, but it's not really something that I've used. I think it's a fine avenue, and I know people that do it and have luck with it, and it helps them in their career and networking and stuff like that. But for me, it's never really led to anything.
Okay. I suppose because I've heard the film festivals are a lot more beneficial for short films really than features. But again, that goes back to that genre thing as well. Like when I put when we put a version in some of them, we went specifically for horror film festivals because you wouldn't go putting it into a comedy one or that type of thing, So I don't know. I guess there's a lot of things people have been asking me that they're not on now, but they've been asking me to ask you. Just about, because here in especially in WA, when like Queensland and Melbourne and all that, they have studios and stuff like that. We're looking at getting a studio built because we've got Kate Walsh here from Grey's Anatomy. She's been here for almost a year now.
Nice.
Because of COVID. So they're looking at spending $100 million and building a studio here.
Oh, wow.
The only problem we've got is except for our governing body, which is called Screen West, we don't really have budgets to work with here at all. Like, the film I'm doing with Aaron now is his own film, but he's putting in his own $7,000 for that film to make the feature. And a lot of the actors that we asked to be in the film, the first question they always ask is it paid? And they know the industry here is like that. So a lot of them, I guess, just want to know, is it worth making a film for free, or should you try and at least pay them something?
That's a difficult subject. My personal opinion on it, and it's kind of changed over the years. When I started out, I was like, it was passion, man. Just make it. Get it done. We're all doing it together. It's no big deal. And then you make a few, and you start making a little bit of money off of it. And I think you have a moral responsibility to pay people to work on your film.
Yeah.
Now that said, if you're talking about actors, for example, that there is value in doing free work. I wouldn't be where I am today, even as a director, if I wouldn't have done some free work. I just wouldn't, or for very, very, very low paid work. I mean, I got my first job. I was an assistant editor, and I caught the eye of an EP that was working on it, that was making these really low budget movies, like 10,000 a piece. And he wanted me to come, like he had lost his DP like the day before. So he had me come shoot it because I owned a camera. So I shot his movie, and then he found out I could edit. So he's like, hey, would you edit it? And I edited it. And I literally shot and edited that entire feature film for like maybe $300, like something crazy. Right. But like that working with that guy led me to the rest of my career. Like I met people through that where I got hired to direct those $50,000-$60,000 movies. They found me through him, so that led to that. I mean, and there's other examples. So I do think, either as a filmmaker or as an actor, and that's just a question you have to answer for yourself. Is there value in doing this thing? Whether it's, personal, I just want to help my friend out, or it's like, am I going to network through this and meet other people and work on other things? So I do think there is some value in doing free work. As a producer now, I can't ask people to do that anymore, but that's just me. And that's another reason why I do much less narrative work now and more of these documentaries, because I don't need a crew to do a documentary. Yeah. So, I don't have to ask people to work for free.
Yeah. I understand. And it is hard. I mean, it's a lot of, we had one short film we did, which is about to come out, that we had the guy, the writer got it turned into a script, and he had a budget, and we paid everybody the day rate, but the director is actually doing, so he directed it, he's doing the sound design, color grade, he's doing the music score, everything himself. So obviously he got paid a little bit more than everybody else, but yeah, that's my aim now, that I've done about 6 short films and 2 features. So I haven't got I don't feel I've got the resume myself to be able to ask people when they want to make a film if they've got a budget, if you know what I mean, because I'm still learning. But at what point do you think you get to where you would, if someone said to you, I want you to make the script, and you say, if you've got a budget, I can't do it, is there a point where you'd feel bad, or you just like, no, I've got to do it because you want to get everyone paid?
So I'm sorry. You're asking if
so I've done, like, say for example, I've done 6 short films and 2 features. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, some of the films I'm doing still aren't paid. Like the one I'm doing with Aaron is paid. It's not a lot, but it's, so if someone came up to me and said, I've got even if it's a short film, if I've got a short film, and then I say to them, do you have a budget? And they say no. Would you do it just because you want to build up your resume, or is there a certain point where you get to where you think, no, I really need a budget to be able to keep doing this? Okay.
Yeah, I get you. So yeah, man. And again, that's a question that everybody has to answer for themselves. Yeah. But I do believe that depending on where you want to go in your career, mm-hmm. there was a point in my career, I would say it was probably around the 5th or 6th, micro budget, under 50,000 feature that I did, where I kind of permanently got stuck at that level. Okay. Like, if you make 50, 40, 30, $10,000 movies and you make a number of them, at a certain point, that's all people are going to see you as. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a glass half empty way to look at it, but I know for a fact, around 2014, at that point I directed around 10 or 12 micro budget films, and successful financially films. Some of these movies made, collectively millions of dollars. Yeah. But so I have a meeting and I have this script, and it's no no ego. It's a good fucking script. And you know, it was commercial. We had name talent attached. I get into the room and it goes great. And then they're like, right at the end of the meeting, the guy's like, hey, we want to check out some of your other movies. Where can we go look? And I send them a link and check out a couple of the movies. And then like 3 days later, this deal that was done is gone. Like it's gone. Now they never said, hey, these movies are too low budget. We want something better than this. But nobody will ever convince me that isn't why, right. That I'm not directing 2 or 4 or $10 million movies at this point. Like now I have since, made peace with making low budget movies, making a living at it. I like doing it. I get fulfilled from it. If I never make a movie, over $1 million ever, I'll be just fine. I'm not saying I wouldn't take it or that I don't want to, but at a certain point, you get in this industry, you get labeled, and it's hard to remove it. I mean, I have a friend who's a sound mixer, and he's an incredible director, like a really good writer. And he has this great script. They got a great package. They shot this incredible proof of concept. Like they shot it for like $4,000. It looks like $1 million. Looks awesome. And meeting after meeting, he goes in with these guys, and has a sound mixer. He's worked on, studio stuff, but he goes into these meetings and they're like, oh, it's the sound guy. And he can't close the deal.
Yep. Yeah. The, is what you were saying before on with Alex about Eric Roberts. When Aaron was at the AFM, everything was Nicolas Cage. They said John Travolta doesn't sell, but if you bring us anything Nicolas Cage, then we're interested.
Right.
So what do you think? What do you think those guys are making, getting paid for making? Because again, Nicolas Cage just seems to be turning out crap, but he's doing it all the time, and he's not obviously not earning the millions and millions that he was before. But
I don't know for a fact because I don't work on that level of movie, but I would imagine Nicolas Cage is still he's making high six figures even on those little movies. Because if you put Nicolas Cage in a movie, even a crap DTV thing, it's going to make a certain amount worldwide. Like regardless. And most of the agents that represent these people, they have these numbers. So I was working for an animation company, I owned an animation company years ago, and we were putting together a pilot, and we had a bunch of name actors, and we were talking to, from Scream, the cop, David Arquette. Sorry.
Yeah.
So we were talking to David Arquette, and, I was talking to his agent. And I won't say the amount, but we pitched an amount, and the guy, he got silent for a minute, and then he kind of chuckled, and he was like, guys, like in foreign sales last year, David's last 3 things he appeared in earned this, and that. It was like, so, no. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there's a company called Sharknado, like you were saying, being comfortable at that level. Asylum. They make films like Sharknado and all that.
Right.
They don't make anything, I think, over $2 million. And a lot of the actors were saying that, they might only get paid $100,000 a movie or 50, whatever it is, but they're happy they can turn out 3 or 4 movies in a year compared to the big A-listers that might do 1 or 2. And so a lot of them are happy doing that. They might compete like Ian Ziering, who's in Sharknado, was in 902. He's happy just doing the 15 or 30 of them that they're doing, and making a living out of them. So I guess for myself as well, I mean, I've only, like I said, just started out, and my aim is to maybe have a little small studio space, whereas if people want to come in and use a green screen or a cyclone wall or whatever, they can. But I'd be happy just to make smaller budget films and turn out more in a year, because for me, I feel like even though I do a few shorts, I feel like having content, if you don't at least have 2 or 3 films coming out a year, you sort of get stale and people stop following you. So like the end of last year, I had 4 short films that I co-produced 2 and produced 2 and had them come out. And there's another one about to come out now. And that's just because I felt like I had to have content coming out, because you're not always going to be able to make a feature. Do you think that's a good way of doing it?
So my whole take, I've said this a few times on my channel, but like filmmaking and putting films out, on almost every level is a numbers game. As on the making money side, if you make 10 movies, 5 are most likely going to, just barely break even or fail. 2 or 3 are going to make, 20-30% return. 1 or 2 is going to like double or triple and make up for your slate, so that in general. So yeah. And I do think there's something to be said for if you're building an audience in creating momentum and keeping that momentum going. I mean, YouTube has really taught me that. It was like I have, I make a decent amount of money. Well, decent. I make a relatively decent amount of money off of my, tiny YouTube channel now. Yeah. But if I were to stop making videos, that would crash within 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap this up shortly because I don't like going longer than an hour. But just with the YouTube channels and stuff, do you think it's worth like cross promoting? So, say for example, like this video will go on my channel and obviously on yours. But is it beneficial me taking, say, videos from your channel and sharing them on mine so other people can see them, or do you think that's detrimental to the other creators?
No, I think cross promotion is a big thing for YouTube or pretty much anywhere. So yes, well, depending on the value of your channel. So if your channel, which I'm assuming it's a filmmaking channel, and my stuff is relevant to it, and then absolutely, yeah. Like, I tend to take a punch down, not up. So like I try to look for creators that are maybe not as high in the subscriber count as mine or not as popular and feature those, and then every once in a while I try to find somebody who's a little bit bigger. There's a guy named Dan Lotz. We're about at the same level, but he did an interview with Joel Haver, who's like this animation YouTube dude. He has like, I think like 1.5 million subscribers or something like that. So like Dan did an interview with him, and I think Joel did a video on his channel featuring Dan, and Dan's channel like overnight popped up like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers, lots of videos. So like it definitely helped him in that case.
Because I'm only on 46, but that's because I ran another YouTube channel and some of them come over. But someone also said to me to be able to get, I don't know if it's a good way of doing it, but say for example, the people that comment on your videos on your channel, what you could do is you could go in, subscribe to their channels, and if it's relevant, like you said, filmmaking, and then just say, look, hi, I've subscribed. Would you mind checking out my channel? But I mean, for me, it feels like you're trying to steal with things away from the other creators.
Yeah. I don't feel like that way about it. Like I'm stealing their subscribers, but the way I feel about it is like that is a lot of work for a subscriber that's probably not going to mean very much to you. Like I think that's really close to the sub for sub thing, which in my opinion is just a complete waste of time. Like the thing about building a YouTube network is like the number of subscribers isn't nearly as important as the quality, the type of subscriber. So like if if you're in a group and you do a sub for sub and that person never ever watches another one of your videos and you get a bunch of those, like all YouTube is seeing is like, hey, this person has 3,000 subscribers and 250 of them are watching their stuff. The other guys never did nothing because they're just blank numbers. It doesn't help.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know Aaron, his channel got monetized. He had one film called Caged In, and it's about domestic violence, and somehow that went viral, and so now he just got over 1 million views or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you're doing something else with your channel about obviously you're selective of which ones, but other filmmakers can approach you with their films to possibly put on your channel as well. How are you working that?
Well, to be honest, we were talking about this before, and I'm kind of second guessing that, because I was really thinking about it, but the danger and even in just putting up my own features right now is that, for example, I just put up Edges of Darkness on there, and it's like in less than a week, it's got like 20, I think we're just past 20,000 views, and it's upped my subscriber count by about, I don't know, 300 or 400. But what I'm worried about is So 400 new people have come into my channel in the last week, has subscribers that came in for this zombie movie that are never going to watch another one of my videos, that don't care about the filmmaking things.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm afraid that I knew intellectually that the better thing was to start a new channel and do that as movies, but it's so hard to get a channel monetized. I was like, let me try this on my channel. And I don't know yet what the effects are going to be. There is a theory, you know, amongst YouTubers right now that YouTube's algorithm, it doesn't work like it used to. Like, it used to be more about your overall channel. Now it's a lot more about the individual videos. And if that is true, then this shouldn't hurt my channel, but it remains to be seen. So I at least at this point, I think I'm just going to put up a few more of my own things, see how it goes for a couple of months, and then make the decision whether or not to host other filmmakers' videos.
Because it definitely wouldn't hurt other, so for example, myself sharing some of your movies on my channel, like Edges of Darkness. I don't think that would actually hurt your.
No,
because
not at all.
I thought you were going to go, when you were talking about the 400 subscribers, I thought you might have gone in a different direction where, if, say, for example, if I was to put something on your channel, then maybe those 400 would leave yours and go to watch mine. That's sort of maybe where I thought you were going with that.
Right. No. Like, and I wouldn't, and I was, like I said, I just don't think, like, I would never be worried that somebody was going somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I would be worried about losing subscribers.
Yeah.
You know, for example, you know, I won't call anybody out, but, you know, I've put up a couple other filmmaker videos, like just filmmaking videos that are appropriate for my channel, but like I've lost subscribers, you know, not a ton, but enough to notice, you know, so.
Yeah. Well,
I still experiment. I'm still experimenting with it though, because it's something like you can't make a decision based on, you know, a single sample size. Like, you have to do a few. And with YouTube, anything you do on YouTube, it's like steering a boat. It's like so slow. So like, you know, you have to give things time. Yeah,
that's right. And the so like, I'm trying to do also some tutorials on mine as well, but I've looked at one of the biggest view counts I've got is for unboxing a clapper. That's like,
I don't doubt it.
and you know, even unboxing lights and stuff. But I was doing a producer series, like the difference between executive producers and produce, all that sort of thing. So
that's a good one.
And then I decided to start this because another guy I know does one called In5, so he gets people to go to his house and they do interviews that way. But I just thought this way I can do live interviews, and I'm not sure if I'll keep doing them live because I don't get a lot of interaction. But yeah, I thought if I do live ones, then I can, you know, chat with other people, and you don't have to leave your house or anything like that.
Yeah. And you know, if you want my advice on it, then this is just, again, man, I'm a small YouTuber, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think that the live stuff, it really helps like cement an audience once they're in there. But you're gonna you'll actually like lose a few subscribers like live stream. So like usually like stuff like this, you know, I do these all the time, and I don't do them live at all. You know, I take them out, I edit them, you know, you know, I make them briefer or whatever, take out the pauses or like where I, you know, lost my train of thought earlier, like I would take that out and then put it up. And then once you reach a certain point where, you know, like I started experimenting with live streams, like I think I was 6 or 7 months into my channel before I started messing around with live streams. And you know, and I would do them kind of short, you know, I'd do like a half an hour one, see how it goes, how many people show up. Like for me, I do them by myself, not like this, so I have to I basically have to vamp for an hour. So if I'm not getting questions, like it can be painful, you know. So until I got to a point where I would have 30 or 40 people watching and interacting, then I could comfortably do more live streams. That's the way I approach it. But
well, I'm thinking of doing the similar, just because even on StreamYard you can do it where you just record without going live. So I'm thinking of going back to doing that, because I've got a Facebook page called Perth Filmmaking Community, and that's got nearly 2,000 members. And I used to do a live from there every Monday night, which I think I might go back to doing lives from there, because that's just the local area, and people tend to chat more that way. Plus, we're on a public holiday here, so people are away camping still. Right. So I think I might do it that way, just because, like you said, the editing, you can't edit these live videos almost. It's almost impossible. So So I think I might start doing it where I pre-record them, and then then go that way. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to get my subscriber count up, but I'd rather get more quality videos out there, and then hopefully they kind of help with the subscriber count from there. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to support any channel. Someone said to me, anyone that's got over 10,000 subs, probably you'd want to be supporting people below that, because that they're tending to do okay.
Yeah.
But you know, I'll throw likes and comments on filmmaking videos, because I watch yours. I watch Film Courage. You know, they've got two channels. Alex's ones, because I just like to learn as much as I can. And a lot of the stuff that you put on, even today, I was watching the one about the guy in the UK, him and his wife. Film. Well, one thing I was finding out, which I'm going to mention in another video, was that a lot of people now are tending to do the smaller stuff. So obviously, the one you spoke, Alex did one with the guy did one for $9,000.
Yeah.
Then the other guy did one for 4 or 5. It seems like a lot of people are just going that way now. They're just tending to just put their own money in and make something, and not having to rely on other people. So it looks as though that's what's happening. And because I spoke to someone the other day, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm looking for," because I don't write. I don't know how. I've tried it, and I try to get people to write it up for me. But that's part of the problem I have, is if I've only got a budget of $5,000, people want $2,000 to write it. And so
totally.
Unless I've got someone that is willing to write it for me, then I'm sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I'd like to put my own money in and make a film for $5,000 or $6,000, but again, I don't want to have to spend most of that on the writing. So yeah, I'm still working out the best way to do that. I've tried to use all different programs, and I can get the acts in my head, but getting them from there onto paper, like I say, okay, this is the start. I tell someone this is the start, and they work their way through. It ends up like this and finish. They're like, yeah, you got to work out all the bits in the middle first.
It's tough, man.
Yeah. So I've got one guy that is happy to do some writing and he's happy to come on set essentially as a script supervisor, make sure it's all run. So there's a few people like that, but
yeah, I mean, again, you know, it's that's never been a thing for me, because I always wrote, but you know, I mean, I talk to people all the time that, you know, in the US anyway, that are, you know, they're making their low budget movies, and they're like, oh yeah, my writer, he lives in Ohio, and like they do it for fun, you know, like there are people out there, like how to find them, I don't know, but I mean, they do. I mean, like the one guy, he met his writer in a horror group. They were just, you know, like bullshitting about some movie, and you know, they became friends, and he asked him to write a script.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But I don't know, you know, like a solid path in doing that. And I know if you go into screenwriting groups and you start like querying for people, you're just going to get attacked.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at getting a series done up, a supernatural series, and one of the people that said they're interested in writing is actually doing a writing course at TAFE. So for them, it works out okay, because you know they're doing it as part of their education, so they're happy to come on and help out that way. So that might be another way of doing, maybe getting student writers to come in and that type of thing.
All right.
But yeah, thanks, Jay. It was awesome to have you back on. Everyone, I'm going to link Jay's channel down here. Go out and check all the movies that he's got on there. And if you have any other questions about distribution or things like that, we could go into it all night, but it'll just drag on. Yeah, just feel free to hit the comments up. And yeah, like I said, I'll link him, and I'll link your Patreon and all that down there as well.
Awesome.
So just quickly, your Patreon, does that have different, because I've just created one, but does that have different content to what you put on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, a little bit. So I don't create like videos like for YouTube on my Patreon. On Patreon, it's really more, you know, like I have producer tiers where people can come in and, you know, donate so much to be producers on a movie a month or something like that. I share production forms, you know, like stuff like budgets and, you know, slates and stuff like that. I put up progressive cuts of some of the movies I'm working on. So for like, you know, people that are like, what does a rough cut of a documentary look like? What does an assembly look like? I do that kind of stuff.
And so obviously Patreon, it takes a lot longer because you might have $3 a month or whatever. But do you feel that's another sort of way? Say, for example, if you want to pay for your internet every month or something like that, is that another way that you can help subsidize that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like doing something like the YouTube channel, like I have a lot of, you know, probably 20 or 25 Patreons that, they do like $1 a month, and
Yep.
they're not even really looking for any kind of return. They just want to support you. They're like, man, I love this channel. I love what you're doing. I want to throw you some support. And they do that. And then, then you have other tiers where people do get something back. But yeah, I think Patreon can be a good supplement thing. And there's some people that make a lot of money on Patreon. I mean, I don't. I think anywhere from 200 to 1,000 a month, depending on what's going on. But it fluctuates because a lot of my higher tier stuff is the producer stuff, so they'll only do it for 1 month or 2 months, stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jason. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your morning. So you got up really early. And thanks everyone. I will post this up so you can go back and watch it. But I'll definitely start doing the pre-recorded stuff. I think now it'll work out better, because I've noticed that even with my lives I do on Facebook, I get like maybe 2 people watching, but then 80 watch by the end of the week. Your numbers go because they go back and watch it. So
exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Heaps. And I'll link everything for you down in the bottom anyway, Jason, when I put the video up.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Heaps.
Thank you.